Let's start off with Nigeria. Now, the former special advisor to the President on National Assembly matters, Senator Ita Enang, on Thursday, blamed the National Assembly for the failure of the Nigerian economy, the rising debt profile of the country, and the collapse of the national currency, which is the Naira. He said the failure of the National Assembly to ask relevant questions were responsible for the problems in the economy, amongst others. Now, joining me on the program to make sense of this is Olusesan Okunade. He is a public affairs analyst from Lagos. He joins me in the studio, actually. And also, we have on the program Kolawole Oluwadare. Is the Deputy Director, SERAP, joining from Abuja. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me.
Good evening, Double. Great to be here this evening.
Thank you very much.
All right, Dari, also thank you for joining. Well, let me start off with Dari on this one. Now, this is, I mean, will I say is pretty, maybe not new to you, because we know that SERAP and the federal government in particular, you're always at back and forth on issues like this. But let me know your immediate reaction to what the senator said.
Thank you very much. This is very interesting. Of course, what he said is not far from the truth. The National Assembly, or the legislature, if you're looking at the legislature at the state and local and federal levels, of course, they have enormous powers. Even though we have three different arms of government, the role of the legislature is perhaps the most crucial. Because even the laws made by the National Assembly would guide the actions of the executive. It is the laws made by the National Assembly that the judiciary will interpret. And that puts the National Assembly at the very center of what we have, what our constitutional democracy. So they have enormous powers, and the powers goes on and on, including even the appointments made by the president. Which, for instance, the appointments and removal of the heads of major parastatals, including the anti-corruption agencies, is subject to confirmation by the National Assembly, Senate in some instances. What about their powers over appropriation, spending, oversight, and even the Auditor General's report? So we can go on and on. The National Assembly has enough powers. The question, perhaps, which we will answer during the course of this conversation, is whether those powers have been used at all and how they've been used.
I mean, that's a pretty deep one you're asking there, whether those powers are being used, if at all, and if they're used in the right direction. But I would like to pick part of the areas that he highlighted. They talked about oversight. You know, that's what the senator kept saying, that the oversight, not asking the relevant questions and allowing things to slide. Even went as far as saying that at some point when some of them try to raise pivotal issues, they are told that you are speaking too much grammar, and then the gavel goes up. But maybe I should move to Sheson on this one. I mean, what do you make of this?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dabo. The submission of the senator is quite apt, I must say, but the question I always ask people is, why do we always speak the truth when we are out of the chambers? Is a big question that we always ask. How much do you exhibit some of this, your knowledge about the position you are actually occupying each time you are there? He has said it that they have great oversight function, and part of the things they are supposed to do, which is obtainable, even if you go to the private sector, is you have a budget at the beginning of the year. You're supposed to have actual, compared to your budgeted both revenue and income right from the beginning of the year, and give explanation of why certain things are being done, why those things are not being done. But what we've seen over time is that the legislator most of the time just act, bring it, we'll rubber stamp, so that we don't want to be like a wheel. We don't want to be like a spanner in the wheel of progress for the executive. But the truth of it is, we need to have, they are like control mechanism on certain things that the executives are doing. That's why they say they have an oversight. So you bring some of those things to them. Like Dari said, you discover that if the legislator are not really empowered, the president have the prerogative to choose whosoever he or she wants to work with him, but he still needs the approval of the house to actually rectify. And we've seen instances that the executive will present, the president will present certain personality and will still be turned down by the legislative arm. But like you asked, are they actually exhibiting or utilizing this power the way they should be? I would say that it's not 100% that they've been doing that, and that's where we are today, because a lot of questions needed to be asked from the executive, because they are at par, if you ask me, both the executive, the legislator, and the judiciary. They are at par that are responsible to give account of what they are actually doing to the citizen, but we see more of the executive being what I would call overshadowing the other arms of the government, which is the legislators and the judiciary arm of the government.
I mean, you said quite a number of issues there, talking about the executive and also the fact that the national, in spite of the fact that the president, has the prerogative to select his cabinet, it needs the approval of the National Assembly on this one. But I would go back to you, Oluwadare. Now, in the words of the former senator, he said, it is the fault of the National Assembly for the failure to do their oversight function. If the National Assembly were able, they would ask questions when you pass a budget. You would embark on oversight to see how much the budget was, how much was released, and to what extent this money's released has been used. You also talked about borrowing, but let's start off with accountability on how much is being spent in the previous budget. He actually accused the National Assembly of not doing follow-up, in that regard, in terms of presenting a formal report before the House. I know that SERAP has been very much outspoken on public expenditure. I would like your reaction also on that.
Thank you very much, and the issues are very clear in this regard. The National Assembly, perhaps from 1999, has not been as active as it ought to be. The powers that they have are quite enormous. Think about their powers over money bill, for instance. Section 59 of the Constitution gives the National Assembly wide powers in this instance, which means even the appropriation bill that becomes an act subsequently, of course, needs the approval of the National Assembly before it is assented to by the president. At that point, they have powers to do some mathematical compositions, including having ministries, departments, and agencies, including the presidency himself, to come and defend why they should get this also amount of money, including how they have used the environment that they got in the previous budgetary cycle. So you see the powers that they have. What about borrowings, as you alluded to? Every borrowing, domestic or foreign, by the federal government, by the executive, at the end of the government, go to the National Assembly approval, which is why, again, they should naturally ask pertinent questions. How are we going to fund this budget instead of increasing the deficit? But what we've seen over time, particularly since 2015, is that the National Assembly even increases the deficit in the budget without necessarily finding a way that will not economically hurt Nigerians in funding the budget. Most times we resort to borrowing. And so when we talk about oversight also, a very good example, and this is the third and most important point, is the powers and the statutory functions of the Auditor General of the Federation. When you look at the powers and duties of the Auditor General and what this office has done over the years, the Auditor General has looked at the books of the various MDAs in Nigeria and has come up with damning reports that chronicles how most of the MDAs cannot account for trillions of naira every year. The latest report is the 2020 report, and it can be obtained by any Nigerian on the website of the Auditor General of the Federation. And the National Assembly is the arm of government with the powers under Section 85 of the Constitution to examine the report of the Auditor General, the Public Accounts Committee, to look at it, and they have powers, also Section 88 and 89 of the Constitution, to even summon anybody that has been indicted in that report to ask questions. This is a critical part of the oversight. So when you look at where we are as a country economically, either with the state of our economy as a country, the GDP, the poverty that is going in Nigeria, and our high debt profile, the National Assembly is at the center. If the Auditor General can come out every year to say that ministries, departments, and agencies cannot account for trillions of naira in some instances billions of naira, and these agencies still get money voted to them in the next budget without any questions being asked. But it's very important.
I'm sorry, Dari, you've said quite a number of things, but I'm also trying to understand, what do you think might be the root cause? Could it be a composition of the National Assembly? What do I mean? Do we have enough opposition in that assembly to be vocal enough to maybe challenge the status quo? I remember there was a particular administration, I think the previous administration, people dubbed it, the rubber stamp. I don't know if you recall Assembly where virtually everything just received a yay. And then you ask yourself, but then you look at it, the speaker, the head, the same party with the executive, and it goes down like that, the key officials, and then you ask, is this, even though it's democracy, is it healthy?
That point is very important, that we do not mix democracy with politics. The politics is good, is at its place, but sorry, pardon me, I meant governance with politics. Politics has its place and governance at its place, but governance is the major issue that affects every Nigerian. Governance or the malfeasance in governance is what has actually brought us here, not politics. We do not need to have opposition in the, and I'm not saying opposition is wrong, it's part of democracy. A strong opposition is not a necessary requirement for good governance. Even if all the members of the key officers in the National Assembly belong to the ruling party.
You said, I'm sorry, Darry, you said a strong opposition does not necessarily result in good governance. But don't you also think a strong opposition...
It's not a major requirement.
It's not a major requirement. But again, okay, but again, you would also want to say a strong opposition, can bring about checks and balances. Because if all of them, are maybe of the same party, they may run an agenda that at the end of the day, the entire public might not really be down with it. So I would just want you to clarify more on that.
Perhaps it's the way we play politics in this part of the world. And again, politics is fine. I'm not speaking against politics. But whether the leadership of the National Assembly is from the opposition of the ruling party, the laws that guide the conduct of these members are clear. The constituents in their various parts of Nigeria also will benefit from the economy or suffer from the economy as it will. So for the National Assembly to check the report of the general, for instance, you don't have to be a member, you don't have to be in the opposition. Because if these funds have been missing, that have been allocated to health, education, and security has been missing, every Nigerian will suffer for it, including those in the National Assembly. So again, this has nothing to do with politics. Perhaps from what you said, if there is a strong opposition in the National Assembly, they might play that role to check. But again, the motive of that check may be political. But again, it doesn't matter what the motive is, as long as it keeps the government on its toes to do the right thing. But again, it is not a necessary requirement. Whether they are from the opposition or from the same ruling party, as long as the National Assembly can do its job, not to fight the executive, no, to make sure that the provisions woven in the Constitution to keep everybody in check runs very well. So if the National Assembly, as we are presently constituted, even though they are, the key officers are from the ruling party, if they do their job, particularly the Public Accounts Committee, and get back every missing from 2015 till 2020, as recommended by the Auditor General, we would not need to borrow. People will be held accountable. Public funds will go back into the public pockets, and every Nigerian will get the benefit of public service. It's as simple as that.
Okay, let me go to Olusesan on this one, and just a bit of joinder to that. Do you think that do you also share Darry's line of thought on the fact that opposition necessarily doesn't determine in terms of accountability, and of course governance? Do you think, particularly in the Assembly, do you think they don't play a key role? And also, do we have an institution within that framework that runs on autopilot, such that in spite of whoever or whatever party is there, efficiency, accountability is assured?
I will start from the last question to say we have a system. Is the implementation of those things that is actually the problem. If you look at the role of the legislator, I'll put it in this perspective to say in the private sector, I'm sure the chief internal auditor is part of the management team and is there to look at the activities of the executive, which he actually belongs to. And most of the time is to guide them. The legislator understands the law. They make the law, and they are there to make sure that these and these are basic things that you are to do to make sure that you give the dividend of democracy to the people. If you are not doing it, then you ask questions. You must have done it. Most of the time you see people going extra mile, all in the name of saying we are being overzealous. We want to satisfy our people, but they're actually contravening the law. And that's why the legislators are there to say, see, if this and this and this must be done, you must get this out. Like what Darry said, if you look at the report of the Auditor General, if you are able to trace that out alone, to say this and this, call them out. The major reason why we are where we are today, it's because we are not having consequences for wrongdoing. Nobody to highlight it. Even when you see it, you decide to go the street line to say, just take off your eyes and allow it to go. It's his turn, possibly I might be the one entering it.
But we have a situation where we must go into a situation where individuals are able to come and say, this has actually been done, these are the consequences to it. And when that is actually been done, you discover that every executive or head of parastatals will check the activities of what they are doing. If you have the report right from 2015 till date that have actually made some people culpable of certain acts, misappropriating funds, and no punishment, nothing is actually being done. And we have a law that is actually stipulating that those people must be punished and not followed. You discover that everyone that finds his or herself in that particular position will do whatever they like. And that is the problem that we are currently faced with. No consequences for any wrongdoing. Even if the report is right in front of you, everybody feel that let's just overlook it and move on. And that's where we are currently.
All right, Dare, let me go back to you on this one. Now, quite a lot of people are also asking the question of, does Nigeria really need two houses? You have the green chamber and the red chamber. And it seems like there is a thin wall as to their responsibilities. I mean, I think one of them just came back from recess recently, you know. So, and it costs money, right? From a country that is set to be bleeding, you know, financially. So my question is, do you think that Nigeria actually still needs two houses, the upper chamber and the lower chamber, and who holds the National Assembly accountable?
Thank you very much, Dapo. Your question or comment, as it may appear, speaks to two issues. One is the functional effectiveness of having two chambers in the National Assembly as the president may have, or the issue of management of public funds and maintaining it does not matter whether we have one or two or 10. If they are not effective in following the law, Nigerians will suffer for their ineffectiveness. So what we've seen is that we've had two chambers who have not been effective in doing them, for the most part, things that would benefit Nigerians. So even if we have one, what would give us the guarantee assembly that they would do what we're supposed to do? What that would simply do is to answer to the second part of the question, which is it will cut wastage. It's natural. It will save funds if we have just one chamber of the National Assembly. We won't spend so much. But even one has the side also, without checks and balances and accountability, to even spend twice as much as we have currently spending. Don't forget, the National Assembly traditionally has always increased its allocation. So even if we have one house, they would increase the allocation, and don't be surprised. They might even increase the allocation to cover what more than two houses are spending. So again, it's not necessarily about the numbers, even though the numbers would help. It is about, are these agencies of government, in these instances, the various committees and the National Assembly as a whole, are they following the law in doing what they should do? And are the people empowered, though their constituents, that is, to hold them accountable and to compel them to act in the interest of the people? The National Assembly is also not, it's also accountable to the people. They are not accountable to themselves. They have constituents that voted for them. They have constituency offices where they are supposed to go back periodically to give account of their stewardship in the National Assembly. So again, to sum up the answer in simple terms, it is not necessarily about the numbers, even though the numbers will cut down the cost of governance. But again, it's not necessarily so. It's more about effectiveness and adhering to the principles of the rule of law.
I mean, let me go to Olusesan on this one. Do you think it's about the numbers? So, and in terms of cost of governance, efficiency, and all of that, or we should just leave the status quo and go with Dare's suggestion?
Maybe I'll talk from the perspective of a finance person. And,
okay.
Being an auditor, I think we don't need the two arms. Looking at the cost of government, look at what is appropriated to the House of Representatives, what is appropriated to the Senate, each one of them. Let's consolidate, because it's all about making laws. And when you're out there, it seems to me, although my lawyer friends have said it's not duplication of effort, it looks as if the two parties are actually doing the same thing. And when you look at the period at which the two houses are going on recess, it's like every part of the year, people are just at home, because this will go for like a month or two, this will go for another 1 month or two, consolidate, 4 months is out of it. But if you have it as one, you want reduce the cost of governance. You have, lean people that will take decisions, because at times when we are so many, this also complicates the issues. Of certain things that we're going to take as decision, because what would now be driving it is number. So when you have certain set of people who are just against what you are after, and they have majority as the number, you just kick against it. I have always been saying that if we can have streamlined that, it will reduce our cost of governance, and the citizen on their own can benefit from some of the dividend of democracy with the God-given gift that we have as a country. We discovered that most of these things seems to be in the hands of very few, and you keep asking yourself the question that is it about the few or the majority of the people that they claim that they are legislating over?
All right, Dare, before I let you go, let's streamline it to this current assembly, the one I'm talking about the upper chamber right now. Under, of course, the Head of Affairs, Godswill Akpabio. There's been a lot of controversy back and forth, drama. I mean, we all can remember I think one of the unforgettable moments is prayers in our meals and all of that. That's just one of the many anyway on the side. But I'd like to know your take on the current assembly. Do you think that the current assembly is doing what it needs to? We know from time to time, they keep calling up people to come in and explain. We know that recently they invited the key officers within the energy sector to come and, oil and gas sector, sorry, to come and explain why Nigerians are experiencing fuel scarcity. We've also had a series of summons like that. But do you think the current assembly is doing what it ought to do to ensure that Nigerians, enjoy good governance or better governance?
The short answer is no. And evidence to prove is that we have 3 lawsuits, public interest litigation against the current National Assembly, which ranges from the allocations to the same National Assembly to the way they have increased their own allocations from the Appropriation Act to even compelling them to take action to prove some of the corruption cases and even to investigate the report of the Auditor General. So you cannot say they've done very well in their role to play the role of checks and balances, also with the 2 other arms of government. Also in their own transparency and accountability, they have not done well. So the question is, who will police the police in this instance? If the national, and I'm talking about this present National Assembly, can increase its own budgetary allocation from 500 billion to over 200 billion. So are we sure they are not transparent? And in the breakdown, they have refused to provide line-by-line items of how they intend to spend this over 200 billion, when most Nigerians are poor. So again, this speaks for itself. This National Assembly is neither transparent or accountable, but they've not done enough that they should do to all the other arms of government to account.
How about you, Olusesan?
Yeah, I feel the answer is no. They are not doing as much. You said it in your question that they keep inviting people, or you asked, have we had dividend of those invitations? Do we see people monitoring? They invited people as relate to the oil and gas. Over a week, we are still, all out there, on the same issue, and we don't know where the result will be. By now, like I said somewhere this morning, we should start seeing heads rolling, because you cannot make commitment. When this administration came in, they told us that with the exit of subsidy, that subsidy is gone, we should have availability. But do you know the amount people are buying fuel as we speak? It's not the same rate that they actually promised us that it's going to be. And we feel it is the duty of the National Assembly, who actually, question the current NNPCL chairman before he was actually rectified to be the MD, to call to question why we are facing some of this problem and take necessary action. When you talk about so many other things that are in the space for the beneficiary of the citizen, hardly will you see them ask questions. They only invite them, and we hear so much of grammar, things to be done, exercise patience, and people are dying and dying, entering into hardship day by day. So I feel that they need to still do a lot. And where you definitely know that they themselves, how many of them have that to go back to the constituency where they are actually elected, to actually give accountability of what is actually going on and transparent in the National Assembly? A lot of them are not doing that. Because how will you go to a place now where a fuel you gave promise and commitment,
that will be sold for 568 and it's going for over 1,000 naira as a senator or as a House of Representative member. I'm sure you know what will become of that from the citizen, because even people that are not in power are being attacked. Go to every filling station, people are fighting themselves and killing themselves for what is not. So for me, they are not doing as much as we are expecting them to do as citizens, and I think they should up the game, because we are much more better. We are blessed with everything that is needed. All we need is accountability and transparency in the way governance are being done.
All right, Dire, just one extra question. Now, recently, SERAP actually threatened the Nigerian government and also made demands from the Minister of Works, talking about Honorable Dave Umahi, over the Lagos Calabar Coastal Project. I'd like you to just quickly shed more light on what exactly these demands are and your reservations as a group.
Thank you very much. It's basically a freedom of information request that we've sent to the minister, asking whether there has been any form of environmental impact assessment done on this project, and what is the report of such a project. And this of course, is mandated by law. These should be carried out, particularly on the project of such scale. And this also pertain to private projects, also to public projects. So Nigerians are waiting. And we've asked the minister to make this published widely. This is really a simple matter. Let the minister answer the question. For such a huge project, what has been, if there has been any kind of environmental impact assessment, and what the results of that assessment is very simple. We see no reason why Nigerians should not have access to this kind of information.
All right, Olusesan Okunade, Public Affairs Analyst from Lagos, Nigeria, and also Kolawole Oluwadare, Deputy Director, SERAP, Abuja. Gentlemen, once again, thank you for your time on the program.
Thank you for having us this evening.